make sure you thank her, express your gratitude to Nancy. So we're going to be in Psalm 92 this morning. So if you want to open your Bibles there, or if you have your Bible app, scroll on to Psalm 92. But first, I just wanted to share a little bit about myself, because this is my first time speaking to you guys. I've led worship for a while here, but I haven't really spoke to you. So as many of you guys know, I was hired here as a worship director during the height of the pandemic. I came on in June, so I've been here for a little over a year now. I am a pastor's kid. I grew up moving all over the place. I lived in multiple places here in Oregon. I've lived in Washington, Montana, North Dakota, so lived all over. And I, because my parents were pastors, I was introduced to Jesus at a very young age. Actually, my mom, when I was about 6, my dad kind of did a gospel presentation to us kids because we had done something in church and had been naughty. And he was telling us about Jesus, and I was like, I want that in my life. And my mom kneeled with me on the couch, and we prayed together and asked Jesus to be a part of my life. But I didn't really take that faith seriously till I got into high school. When I got into high school, I was really hurt. I was really mad at the church because I had experienced some things as a pastor's kid that were difficult from some people in different communities we were in. And so I was feeling that hurt, and I went to a camp, and I felt like I needed to forgive people who had hurt me. And when I did that, it was like this weight and this bitterness I've been holding on to came off of me, and I was healed emotionally. And I was able to, I feel like, reconnect with God and see the importance of my relationship with him because he had healed me. And so, going on from there, I, 6 months later, felt God calling me into worship ministry, which is what I get to do here. And that's a huge blessing because I was 14 years old when God called me to walk in that path and be a minister. And now I get to do that here. And I'm so grateful. I'm so thankful to be here and be a part of this community. And my husband, who cannot be here today, he just got hired at Amazon. He's doing his training today. Him and I met in Bible college. So yeah, it's a little bit about me. But yeah, it's just an honor to be here. It's an honor to be able to lead you guys in worship every week. I'm excited to get to know everyone a little bit more now that we're in person, which I love. So yeah, last week, as Demetrius said, we talked about loving ourselves and how that is a big part in how we can love others. And today we're going to talk about how to love older people in our communities and in our churches. God really cares about how we treat older people and how we honor them. And being intentional with our respect and humility toward older people around us is vital for our church, Generations Church, and our mission to build intergenerational relationships. Older people in our community have years of experience and wisdom that they can pass on to us, but we have to give them the opportunity to share that wisdom. So, as I shared before, my dad's a pastor, and one thing that he instilled in me from a young age was the importance of loving elderly people and providing good care to them. He would bring me with him to hospital visits of people who had just gotten out of surgery, people who were at the end of their lives. He would bring me to home visits for someone who had just lost a spouse. And I think those times were really important to me because they taught me they taught me the importance of listening and learning the wisdom and learning the stories that older people could pass down to me. And a lot of times when we visited people, they were facing a lot of loneliness, fear, because they were, just came out of surgery or they're at the end of their lives. But I thought it was something really special that I, as a kid, got to go and visit them and see the joy that brought, and the encouragement that brought. And that didn't just benefit them. I think it really benefited me too and really shaped who I am today. So in light of that, let's open up our Bibles. Psalm 92. We're going to be in verses 12 through 15. Okay, verse 12. The righteous flourish like the palm tree and grow like a cedar in Lebanon. They are planted in the house of the Lord. They flourish in the courts of our God. They still bear fruit in old age. They are ever full of sap and green, to declare that the Lord is upright. He is my rock, and there is no unrighteousness in him. So, as we see in this passage, living a life that honors God goes on to have huge benefits in the later years, not just for yourself, but for the next generations to come. So when it talks about in verse 14, the fruit that's bared, it can refer to things like the fruit of the Spirit, which we know are things like love, joy, peace, self-control, patience. Or it can talk about the wisdom that older people have because they've lived through a lot of situations that younger people maybe haven't experienced yet. Or it can show a life that has... I lost my words here. Okay. Or it can be talking about a life that shows the love of Jesus and brings other people into relationship with him. And then the sap and green that it talks about that they are full of refers to things again like wisdom, love, trustworthiness, contentment. Or I would like to say it's the things that elderly people are filled with, the things that we need, the nutrients that they need to just sustain, I can not pronounce things today, to sustain a good life. So this passage shows us that the older people in our generation's community have an important role to all of us that are younger. They have lived a life that honors God, and we need that wisdom for ourselves. We need to learn from their example. Because when they impart that wisdom, that strengthens our bond and our connection as a community. As an almost 24-year-old, I've seen a very small chunk of life. And I have a perspective that's maybe valid, but I don't have a bigger picture of things because I haven't seen, 20, 40 more years of my life. An older person has lived 2 or 3 times the amount of time that I have. And so they have a fuller understanding of what life may look like, and they can navigate some of those experiences better and give us, younger people, the wisdom that we need to also navigate those situations. So, in light of Psalm 92, there are 3 things that we need to learn when it comes to loving older people. The first one is that older believers provide communities with wisdom. The second is that older believers deserve to be treated with honor. And the third is that older people deserve to be treated with care in our church, community, and in our families. Awesome. So when we take actions like these and show the older people around us love, it's a very humbling experience for us. Wisdom takes a lot of humility on our part. And serving people well requires us to be like Jesus, who was humble enough to lay himself down for us. So when we show our humility and when we serve with humility, it shows that our true motivation is to share the love of Jesus with the older people that we encounter in our daily lives. So let's examine these points further. Okay, so number 1 was older believers provide communities with wisdom. The older people in our church are providing us with wisdom through their sap and green, which we discussed earlier in Psalm 92, verse 14. which is their wisdom. So through them, we can have great support in our walk spiritually, and we can draw from their wisdom and how to sustain a fruitful life. Learning from their life example is a great way for us to all grow in our faith. And if we don't draw from their wealth of wisdom and experiences, we could miss out on learning valuable lessons. In college, it was so easy for me to want to listen to the younger voices around me when I was facing difficult situations, and there was abundance of younger people around me speaking. But they also lacked the experience to help me through some tough situations that I was going through. And when I reached out to older believers who became mentors in my life, they were able to share their experiences with me that were maybe similar and help me navigate those situations that I was going through that I probably couldn't have done as well talking to a younger person about it and trying to figure it out. And I think those relationships with older people really helped me grow, and they really helped save me from any further pain in my life. Awesome. So if you're older, you're full of wisdom, and we need your wisdom, and we need to receive it. And I think, too, whatever it is that you feel gifted in or you like to contribute to our church body, it's vital, and we need it, and we need your influence around us. So when I was thinking through this, I just thought about last Saturday. I was at the diaper depot with Robin, and Charlene came to help. And I just thought it was so awesome to see her visiting with the people who came through. And, you know, she helped us a lot with organizing a big donation of diapers and sorting it. But I think the biggest thing I noticed and really took away from the way that Charlene served was that everyone who met with her felt welcomed and loved. Everyone could see that she was excited to serve them. And I think for me, that was a great example of how, when you're doing a practical ministry, how to engage with people and how to make them feel loved. So thank you, Charlene. Yeah. Let's give it up for Charlene. So younger people, we need to appreciate things like that older people do when we serve with them and the contributions that they bring to our community. And at Generations Church, it's really important that we build relationships with people from a different generation than us. Like I shared about reaching out to older believers, that's important to do whether you're 15, 25, 35, 45, however old you are. It's important to gain wisdom from older generations. And in our missions, or our vision, mission, and values, I always say missions first by accident, document that Demetrius sent out a few months ago, there's a fixed point of fellowship. And in that, it talks about how we would love for people in our church who are under 40 to get together with people who are over 40 and intentionally spend time getting to know them. Because when we do that, we get mutual support and friendship, and we can further encourage one another in our walk with Jesus and in supporting and ministering to those in our community. They're a great way that generational friendships are a great way that older people can be a part of our church community and contribute in a really powerful way. And a great verse about generational impact is Psalm 71, verses 17 through 18. And it says, "O God, from my youth you have taught me, and I still proclaim your wondrous deeds. So even to old age and gray hairs, O God, do not forsake me, until I proclaim your might to another generation." Older believers can have a wonderful impact to the generations that come after them. This passage, I think, shows the beauty of a lifetime in service to God. I think that all of us here would say that we want to live a life that honors God, And a great way we can do that is by learning from an older believer who has done that for a long time. And by watching the life of, listening to the stories of, and asking advice from older people, we gain a friend and a mentor and a co-laborer in Christ. So I think those are all pretty beneficial, beautiful things that we can gain from an intergenerational friendship. And just talking about that impact that it makes, a few years ago, my great-grandma, she is now 98, she sent our family some just family heirlooms, because she's getting, up there, and she wants us to know things about our family and have items that are from when she was younger or when her sister was younger. And she sent a letter with what she sent to us, and it was about I think it was either her grandfather or her father. I cannot remember specifically, because my mom read it to me. But he was not a believer, and he was living a really rough lifestyle, and he was struggling with alcoholism. But one day, he met Jesus, and he turned his life around. And that impacted the way my great-grandma grew up, which impacted the way that my grandma grew up, which impacted the way that my mom grew up, which impacted the way that I grew up. Because we are all able to learn about Jesus. We are all able to experience him and know his love. And that's why I think the impact of older believers is so important, not just in family, but in our church. Because they can pass on so many things about the love of Jesus to us. And so that is how we see older believers provide us with wisdom. The second thing we see from Psalm 92 is that the older generations of believers have spent many years of their lives producing fruit. And because of this, they deserve to be treated with honor. But how can it look to honor an older person? Some ways we can honor them are being polite, checking in with them, spending time with them, praying with them and for them, asking for advice, and learning about them. It can be hard in our society, I think, to sometimes honor older generations because our culture, our American culture, looks at youth as the pinnacle of society. And sometimes it's difficult for younger generations to see the value that older generations bring. Sometimes younger generations tend to focus on negative things, and you see that a lot through social media, what people are talking about. And it's really sad. And it feels like Gen Z, Boomers, Gen X, and Millennials can't seem to agree on anything, and they can't seem to love each other. And that's sad. And our culture highly regards youth. Many people will spend so many resources and so much time and money and effort to look young and to stay relevant. You could look up celebrity plastic surgery fails and see that people do that. That is, they're almost afraid of aging. But the Bible says in Proverbs 16:31, gray hair is a crown of glory. It is gained in a righteous life. And Proverbs 20:29 says, the glory of young men is their strength, but the splendor of old men is their gray hair. God's culture, our community with wisdom, and older believers deserve to be treated with honor. And the last thing I want to talk about is that older people deserve to be cared for in our church, in our community, and in our family. Out of a heart that honors those who've gone before us and lived a full life, like we see in Psalm 92, our greatest response would be to find ways to serve the older people that we know. I love what it says in Galatians 6:10. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are in the household of faith. I think that's a great heart that we can carry into the way that we interact with older people. and older people we encounter in the church and in our families and our community. So we've talked a little bit about intergenerational, I'm going to get that word today, relationships and friendships, and how those can be a great way for us to serve older people in our church. And I think some great ways to do that, to start a relationship with an older person, would be to invite them to a coffee date with you, or invite them to your home for dinner, or maybe to go for a walk and just enjoy the beautiful weather this summer. And also, a great concern for the church is widows, and widowers, I would say too, in our society. 1 Timothy 5:3 says, "Honor widows who are truly widows." In context of this passage, a true widow is a widow who is older and either has no family or their family will not take care of them. And we know that throughout the scriptures, widows are a great concern to Jesus. And often we're commanded to love the orphan, the widow, and the immigrant. So if you come in contact with a widower or a widow who needs care, I think a wonderful thing to do would be to find other believers, other people in our church community, and come together and really figure out what this person needs and how you can bless them and how you can serve them. And I think one of the biggest things that I've seen in our society that widows and widowers probably need is emotional support, especially if they are without any family. And I think a great way to support them is to check in on them, ask them if they need any practical help at home, or share a meal. So we want to love older people in our church. We want to also love older people in our community. In 1 John 3:18 it says, "Little children, let us not love with word or with tongue, but in deed and in truth." Our actions towards the older people in our community can truly show them the love of Jesus. And I think one of the most practical ways to love older people in our community is find your neighbors that are older, and just start visiting with them. Say, "Hey, hi, hello, I'm your neighbor." Nice to meet you. But also find some practical needs they might have. They might need some yard work, some snow shoveled, some help around the house. I know Demetrius has shared they shovel one of their neighbors' driveways when it snows. They just go on over there and serve her. And I think that's a great way to serve an older person. So in my hometown in Jamestown, my parents live right next to, it used to be an older couple. The husband has since passed away. But she's super sweet. She'd bring us cookies when we first moved in. And she really, I think, kind of initiated a relationship with us, which I thought was really cool. But one day, it was really snowy and icy out. My dad noticed that her husband was starting to get a little bit confused, was walking out on the ice. And so my dad went out there and said hello to him. And this man ended up falling and hurting himself. And so my dad went, helped him, called 911, and got him the help he needed. And he was just being diligent and kind of looking out for a neighbor. And that family was very thankful to us, obviously, for being there in the right time, the right place. And it just meant a lot to them that they felt like someone was looking out for them and somebody cared about them. So sometimes the best thing you can do when you have an older neighbor is be diligent. Take some time to visit with them, maybe just across the yard when you see them. We didn't have a fence in our yard, between our yards. So if she was out in her yard, we'd say, "Hi, hello." We visit with her for, 30 minutes. And to her, that meant a lot because she didn't get a lot of visitors. So we want to, oh no, the wind. It's okay. Okay, so Here we go. I got it. Yeah. This page just does not want to lay still. Okay, so we want to love older people in our church. We want to love older people in our community, and we want to love older people in our families. So 1 Timothy 5:8 says, "But if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially for members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever." That is heavy. Ooh. So, at the end of the day, older people in your family, they come first. They're important. They need your love. They need you to serve them and care for them and give them the help that they need. My great Uncle Nathan, he is just a few years older than my mom. He is the youngest of 6 siblings. And he spent most of his life taking care of my disabled other great uncle and his brother and my great grandparents when they were unable to take care of themselves. And he was with them until their lives ended, and he still makes sure that their legacy is remembered and cherished by our entire family. And I will always look up to him because he is a great example of somebody who loves the older people in our family and who took time to honestly gave up a lot of his life and a lot of his personal time to care for and love my great-grandparents and his brother. And he is like the sweetest guy and has such a peaceful demeanor, and he just really shows humility, and he's just soft-spoken and just shows the love of God in the way that he loves members of our family. And so out of that, we are responsible to care for the older people in our family. But that doesn't always look like how we think it should, maybe, because in our society, a lot of people in Western cultures, we don't always have the training to maybe take care of an older person at home, and that's okay. I don't want anyone reading this and feeling like, oh no, I'm horrible. I don't want anyone to feel like that. But I think a great thing we can do is just make sure that the older people in our family are getting the care that they need, and that they're, that we're taking the time to visit them and to encourage them and to love them and to ask them, hey, what are some maybe things you need help at around the home? Just like a month ago, me and my husband drove up to my grandparents' house because they're downsizing and they are getting rid of a lot of books. My grandma used to work at a Christian bookstore, and she paid for all my dad's books when he was in Bible school. So she had a lot of commentaries, she had a lot of other things, and she thought of me, and she was like, hey, you want to come look at my books and also take them down to the garage for me? Because they still live in a 2-story house. So we went through the books, and we helped her get it moved. And I think that those are just simple things we can do to help our older family members. So to sum up today, we want to remember the importance of the wisdom older believers provide us. We want to honor older people, and we want to serve older people. But none of this is possible without the true humility